Okay, we're live. Welcome back to another Big AI Hackathon session. Today we're here with a few engineers from BigCommerce to talk about AI considerations and lessons learned. So I'm going to pass it to you guys. I'll pass it to you first, Luke. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Luke Eller. I'm a staff software engineer at BigCommerce. I work in the shipping and tax team, and yeah, it's great to be here talking to you today.
Awesome, thank you. And Tommy and Mitch?
Hi, I'm Mitch Lombardi. I'm software engineer at BigCommerce. Started last February, and I'm on the control panel experience team.
And I'm Tommy Ekstrand. Been at BigCommerce for a little over 10 years. Not as cool as Luke with the great accent, but he's been around just as long or maybe longer than I have. I'm the engineering manager on the control panel experience team.
Awesome. Yeah, the accent is a big plus one. Okay, so I'd love to hear, first of all, just out of the gate, what your guys' experiences with AI have been like. What have you done? What have you experienced? We can start with you, Luke.
Oh yeah, it's been really interesting. So one of the things I've done recently with generative AI is I worked on a project for one of our internal hackathons where I added a feature to our add edit product UI that would allow you to generate product descriptions based on the details that you've entered about the product so far. And I found that to be extremely powerful and quick and easy to get going. So I was really impressed with the power of the tools available to us now.
Which tools did you actually use, Luke?
I used OpenAI API for that. So I integrated with an SDK that provided an interface pretty similar to what you'd expect from a chat client, and then use that to prompt it with something that would include the details that we have from the product and ask it to generate the description.
Awesome. That is really cool. Tommy and Mitch, how about you guys?
You want to talk about ours?
Yeah, sure. We also worked on a project for our internal hackathon where we ingested support documentation from blog, the developer docs,
And the support docs.
And we put a nice interface on the dashboard of the control panel where users could ask questions, and it will query those ingested docs and provide a nice, simple answer with sources.
Yeah. That was a really interesting project. We also used OpenAI in terms of the model, but used LangChain for sort of like the framework to tie things together. Used Pinecone for our vector database. We used the OpenAI embeddings model. And yeah, we just kind of built like a web scraper to get the content. It was a real short hackathon, so it was a quick way to do it, and broke things down by like headings. So those were our chunks into our embeddings model. And other than that, experience with, a lot of chatting back and forth, getting ideas about who knows what. There's all sorts of interesting things. I use whatever model for on any given day to come up with new ideas or just help me write documents or whatever.
That's very interesting too. A question I have for kind of all of you, you all mentioned these things that are very like user oriented. When you're building user like tools for users, like what are the different considerations you have using AI for user experience versus like non-AI user experience? If that makes sense.
That's an interesting question. The first thing that comes to mind for me is there's quite a bit more unpredictability in what the user can expect back in responses. And that's the key thing with user experience, in my opinion, is setting expectations on the outset of what a user might see. That's why like in e-commerce, one of the key things about having a good user experience for your store is having upfront shipping prices and costs, right? So that you're not surprised at the end of a checkout or something like that. I think the same thing applies to AI, and you just have to think about it a little bit differently. And how do you, especially with something that's so new, where users maybe have not used it elsewhere, generative AI in particular, that you have to somehow set expectations of, even though you don't know exactly what they'll get back, maybe you just have to set the expectation that what they get could be wrong, or it's still learning, or right.
I think another thing that, sorry, Luke, I think another thing that is important to consider is like the speed of the models too. So a lot of these powerful models, the more powerful they are, the slower they are. So it's kind of in contrast to the web now, everything's getting faster. And there are ways to get around that. Like you can stream the response kind of word by word, which is what ChatGPT does to like perceive that it's faster, but slowness is definitely something to consider.
Okay.
Something I learned relating to user experience in the past few months was the consideration of whether you want to give the user a lot of control in the results that are generated, or prefer automation and have everything kind of decided for them. So that's something that it's probably important to balance, and because a simple interface would be easy to use, but if you have more options, then you can offer more power and flexibility. So for example, in my project, I didn't really provide any options to the user, but when I looked at other similar solutions, I learned about a lot of different options that you could provide, and it makes it more powerful and flexible. But maybe it can be a little more difficult to understand. So I think finding a good balance is important for users.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's something very good for everyone in the hackathon to keep in mind. So kind of going off of that, what are the most impactful areas to apply generative AI? Or do you have an opinion? What do you think? And I guess we exist in this world of e-commerce. So maybe within the scope of e-commerce, what do you think? Where do you think the most potential is for generative AI?
I think there's probably a lot of tasks that are time consuming, but can be well suited to automation. Like, say if you have a catalog of images and you want to use AI to generate descriptions of those images for accessibility or SEO, that could be automated through AI and save you a lot of time as an owner of that website. So I think those kinds of repetitive tasks that AI is shown to be able to perform competently is a really good application.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I think product descriptions is I feel like the thing I always think of is what you built, Luke, is the product descriptions, because it's something that is such a pain to do for someone, like to individually write out these long product descriptions that are optimized and whatever. So I love hearing about other examples. Tommy and Mitch, what do you guys think?
I think another one to go along with product descriptions is product images. Like the text to image AI models are getting really good, and you could even edit existing images and change existing images. So I think that's going to be a big one for product pages as well. And then I think there's also the marketing aspect and customer service. So marketing, I know ChatGPT is huge for it because it can recommend all these different headlines and descriptions to test for ads. And then customer service, just being able to have more in-depth automated replies that are personalized to the question the users are asking is very huge and helpful.
Yeah, I think one area I could be very interesting to explore is sort of on like the shopper side of a e-commerce storefront, using generative AI as a chatbot to engage with shoppers, to understand what they're looking for, and maybe in a bit vaguer terms than if we think of ourselves as store owners, would be able to predict. Right. So when you think about setting up search for your e-commerce store, you have to know certain keywords that people are looking for. But there's an opportunity with generative AI to take the power of that and allow it to be the interface between your customers' language, so to speak, and your language, and to help identify the right products or the right product fit, given what their requirements are.
Yeah, those are all such good examples. And I always wonder, like, are we going to get to a place where you can't tell you're talking to a chatbot? Because right now it's so obvious I'm talking to a bot, it'll be like, I don't understand your question, when my question was like fairly clear. How do you, or I guess, where do you see this going, or what do you already think about, like fine tuning those results and balancing customization with automation for things like product descriptions or chatbots or anything like that?
Yeah. I would maybe take it back to what Luke mentioned earlier, in finding the balance between openness in user input and very prescriptive required inputs. And, I personally don't feel like I know enough about the AI space to be able to predict, when it's going to get good enough that most people won't be able to tell. I have no clue, but I do know that by providing the correct prompt and the most specific instructions, you are going to get typically better responses by what the user could expect. So that's just, I don't know, my initial thought.
Yeah. I feel like it'll be like the way everything is moving. I feel like it'll be 2 weeks from now that a bot will be unrecognizably a bot. Luke, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess one of the giveaways when I see some text that seems to be AI generated is it's because the AI is such a language expert. Like, it gets everything in terms of language structure and grammar and punctuation. It's very good at that. But whereas humans, they can be a bit messier at times and not do so well at that. So maybe at times it can be too correct in terms of language structure and grammar. So maybe there's a little bit of a human quality that can be added in, as far as how sort of messy and human-like the answers can be.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. After working on these projects in the hackathon, what was your experience, to anyone who wants to answer, your experience working with large language models like? And if it was like your first time or you're just starting to know about this, like what were your major takeaways from like learning about large language models?
For me, it was a project I worked on. It was the first one that I put some serious time into, and it was just really nice to find how straightforward it was to produce something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. I had this idea for using AI to generate product descriptions for quite a few years now, and with the tools that are available now, it became so easy and simple to make that possible. So yeah, I was just really delighted by seeing that come to fruition.
Yeah, I think to Luke's point, the tooling around AI is really powerful, and it's awesome to see. My kind of main takeaway was it's such a different world. like from everything else. Like Tommy was saying, like just there's kind of this level of unpredictability with large language models. Like you never know what the answer is going to be, which is a little worrying. And you can like tune prompts to help with that, but at the end of the day, you never really know. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to change in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So we now have all these hackers working on all these projects. They're using Google's AI APIs and then the BigCommerce as their engine. What advice? You guys are now seasoned veterans for AI hackathons. What advice would you give, or kind of like what would you encourage them to really focus on as they build out these projects? And really, for a lot of people, it's like their first, getting their feet wet with AI APIs that they're using.
I think something that we've found in working on this stuff is it's so easy as engineers to get caught up in like the tech of it and just like wanting to learn about certain features of a API or a framework that you're working in, and want to figure out how to add tools into LangChain, for instance, or how certain vector databases work or anything like that, that can quickly become the focus rather than sort of your end state and what you want the user to truly experience. So if you don't have that defined, if you don't have sort of like where you want to end up, you can end up really going down these deep holes on all these different tools. And so having the ability to refocus yourself on what the output is going to be and what you want the user to experience, I don't know. That's what I've run into.
I think that's really good advice. I mean, it's good advice for any hackathon, but specifically this one where it's like, you have to stay as shallow as you can to like get things done, and feel free to hackers to circle back later and learn more. But yeah, it's really easy to get hung up, and then all of a sudden it's, it's day 9 and you have to turn something in tomorrow, and all you have is a lot of knowledge and a slide deck and no project. Mitch or Luke, any hackathon advice, any hackathon takeaways?
Yeah, for me, I found using a chat interface was a great way to prototype ideas and figure out what's possible and how easy it might be to get something working. And also, like with a lot of software development, that an interactive prototype can really help you gather the preferences of your users and get insights from their experience. And I think that can help improve your final product. For me, I used my family members as testers, and they provided feedback on the UI and the results that they were getting. And then I was able to improve it and make the product better in the end.
I love that. Mitch, how about you?
I agree with everything, like focus on user experience. I think another thing that is helpful for like probably any hackathon, but especially with AI, is like I kind of like to focus on what we want to demo and kind of move backwards from there. I feel like it keeps you aligned and keeps you moving towards the right things and kind of avoiding going down rabbit holes like Tommy was mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel like the number one advice we give people is establish your MVP before you start doing anything else, because I've done hackathons and it's like halfway through, you're like, what am I building? What are we doing? This is a terrible idea. We just didn't think it all the way through. Not that there's any terrible ideas in the hackathon. No terrible ideas.
Well,
but
it's almost even more true with generative AI, because there's so many outputs, right? That if you're not specific, the breadth of options there is way too large.
Totally. This brings me to another fun question. What are you excited about in the world of AI? And we can keep it within the scope of e-commerce, because again, AI is a little too, I think it's actually kind of nice to think about it within that scope. The other part of the question that you could answer is, or what are you excited about seeing in the hackathon submissions? Like what would you be excited to see in the hackathon submissions? You can take a minute. These are not pre-planted questions, so they are thinking about this.
I'll say the very first thing that came to mind to me is kind of some marrying of technology that both technologies are still emerging. So I would say like AR, VR, and generative AI, and how I don't think that it's probably not realistic for this hackathon. I don't think the tooling is really there yet, but I am excited to see where we get in the future with things like AR and VR in terms of online shopping, in order to experience products in maybe your home, or just in a way of closer to shopping as we would in the physical world, and getting to experience the things around us in true size in comparison to other items can be really helpful. I'm very interested to see where that can merge with generative AI, and how you can create those personalized experiences through that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. No one would ever buy a couch that they had to return ever again. You could actually put it in your space. And those are funny because, not funny, those are great ideas, but we've seen like the beginnings of those and they're just not there. Like I tried on sunglasses on a website the other day, and I was like, there's no way this is what these sunglasses look like on a human. This is so bizarre. But it's like the convenience would be so amazing for something like a couch or sunglass, like, you know, things that you can get wrong so easily by buying them online. Yeah, I think those are awesome. Mitch or Luke, what are you excited to see in the future / coming out of the hackathon?
I'm really excited to find out about the new ideas that come from this. It feels like, I had the idea about making, generating product descriptions, but then I keep hearing about new ideas and how the technology can be applied. So I'm just excited to find out new ways to apply this technology. I think I'm sure there'll be some cool surprises uncovered in the near future.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about, right now there's a lot of solutions focused around like the chat interface, which is exciting and fun, but I'm excited about solutions to problems that don't deal with chat and are just like kind of non-obvious, but like really helpful, like AI solutions to problems. And I think it's such a big new space that I'm excited for problems that we don't even know are problems yet, right? Like just all this stuff that's going to get discovered and found out and solved and advanced upon. So
yeah, I love that. And that's another interesting one. When we talk to the hackers, we really highlight, you know, a good solution is something that actually solves a problem for a lot of people. Like it doesn't have to be, it can be a really cool, like all brand new technology, awesome idea, or it could be, you know, this part of my job is really inconvenient. And for everyone who's a software engineer, this like one little thing is inconvenient, or everyone who's a merchant, this thing about uploading product photos is really inconvenient. You know, just these small things that people aren't even realizing could be this like hackathon winning idea because they think it has to be this big visual amazing thing. Small things that solve problems for lots of people are also like amazing solutions. They're just not as bam as like VR and AR. Like those are also so cool. Not to knock that, Tommy, at all, but you know, like those are so cool. And then I think equally cool is like a solution that solves something for a lot of people that's not even that big of a deal. So yeah, I love that. Okay, we'll go around the group, you three, and if you have to give like one piece of advice to the hacker, because some of you will be judging the hackathon, I think. If you could give one piece of advice to the hackers ahead of their submissions a week from now, what would it be? And this can be from the lens of an AI hackathon judge or just a fellow software engineer, an AI expert, whatever you want to be during your piece of advice. And you can have a minute if you need it.
One thing that I've always found really important in a successful hackathon is to have an idea of the scope of work that you want to do, and is that something you can achieve within the time constraints that you have. And always the most successful projects I've done have been small enough in scope that I can get something done within the time I have. So I'd say just keep that in mind.
Yep. Love that.
I kind of have two main ones. One is definitely move fast. And I think another big one is like trust your teammates, because everyone has different experiences. So I think as people work on a problem together, they're going to have like little ideas that you would have never came up with that I think could totally transform your project as a whole and like just advance it in ways you would have never even imagined.
I love that one too. All right, Tommy, final piece of advice.
Yeah, I think I have to go with 2 as well. Yeah, the first being, as you get ready to demo, to your point, like make sure that you bring your audience for your demo into understanding the issue. So somehow communicate in a way that puts your audience in your target users' shoes, right? So they can experience how much better life is going to be, right? Like that, just explaining that takes your demo from, like 3 out of 5 to 5 out of 5, I would say. And the other piece, I think, to Mitch's point about like getting ideas and working with teammates, if this applies whether you're with teammates or working alone, make sure you take time to step back from everything, like go take a walk, because you will find things you had not thought of and you were too deep in your code to have realized it.
That couldn't be more true. I think everyone has found an answer while they're on a walk after being mad at themselves for 5 hours, trying to solve something, and you're on a walk thinking about something totally different, and it pops into your head. I think those are all great pieces of advice. And I think there's been a lot of really good insight in this panel. Thank you guys so much for joining me and for joining the hackers. And if you're watching this live or asynchronously, you can always pop questions that come up into our Dev Slack channel. Some of these guys are in there. If not, I can always get questions over to them. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys all later.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.